everybody, it's Matt here reviewing the LG G2 for T-Mobile. Just to give you an idea, I've reviewed the LG G Flex, the Moto G 2014 edition, as well as the Blue Studio 5.0C HD. So if you want to have a comparison between all these phones, take a look at some of these videos. This phone, it's manufactured by LG. It contains 32 gigabytes of storage, 2 gigabytes of RAM, a Snapdragon 800 CPU, which is a quad core clocked at just over 2 gigahertz. The phone has a 1080p resolution screen, which is the second highest now. Now they're manufacturing 4K screens. The phone all around is a very good phone. It's similar to the Nexus 5 or the LG G Flex or some of the other later 2013, early 2014 phone models. I bought this phone from a classified ad here in the state of Utah for about $150. So it's a steal of a deal to buy them used. I think it's the best phone you can get for your money. It's between this and the LG G Flex. Anyways, I'm going to quickly go through the phone. The phone is running Android KitKat, and so to give you an idea, Android 4.4.2, which if we hit this button, it'll give you an idea of what it is. K for KitKat. Okay, so it runs one of the newer versions. It doesn't have Lollipop, but it's supposed to, as far as I understand it will be updated to Lollipop. The phone has 4G LTE. It also has a 13 megapixel camera, and the back buttons, the volume as well as the awake and sleep button are on the back. So this is the center button is the awake and sleep, volume up, volume down, 13 megapixel rear shooter. Anyways, to get into the nitty gritty, this phone gets 4G LTE on T-Mobile. That's what I use. I'm going to do a speed test. You can see some of the speeds that you could expect to get on the phone. Here we go. This is really poor for my area. I usually get around 5 megabits. This is on the lower end. I'm getting 2 megabits per second, which is, it's okay. Good enough for surfing the internet. Probably not good enough for streaming an HD video in 1080p. I'm going to try it again. Oh, my upload's really quick. Interesting. Maybe I'll try that one again. Maybe just a fluke. I like how sleek this phone looks. Has all on-screen buttons. It's a really good-looking phone. I have a screen protector on it, so that's probably why there's a little bit of glare on the screen. I'm going to restart that speed test for you. May even be worse. We're getting up to 2 megabits per second. Anyways, this is unusually slow, but still good enough for your everyday use. You'll have no problem doing Facebook, streaming music with 2 megabits per second. In fact, that's faster than my parents' home internet. They're kind of in the Stone Age, but it's decent speeds. Nothing to call home about, but it'll get you through the day. I really love this screen. I think it's one of the clearest and most crisp screens that you can buy. Also, it's very, very clear, and the camera takes great pictures. This is my daughter as the background. That is a very, very clear picture. I don't know if the video portrays it as clear as it is, but the color, it looks great. The clarity is great. You can see single strands of her hair. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, the clarity of this phone screen is great. I really like it. The other great feature of this phone is it has fantastic battery life. So I'm going to show you the battery. So we're at 71%. So we're about a little less than a third drained. And to give you an idea, we've had it on battery for 6 hours. And of that 6 hours, the screen has been on for 1 hour and 2 minutes. So if you kind of were to extrapolate this, you would get about 4 hours of screen time. Anywhere between 3 and 4 hours of screen time with the screen on very bright settings. I have the screen at 80% brightness. So just to give you an idea, that's a lot of usage on your phone in a day. This phone has no problems lasting throughout the day. It's a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, which is huge for the 5-inch screen that it has. To give you an idea in comparison of what this phone size is, I have an iPhone 4 here. So it's quite a bit larger than an iPhone 4. And then I also have an LG G Flex, and the G Flex, it's in an OtterBox, but to give you an idea, I'm going to move these out a little bit. Maybe this will be a better comparison. Need to adjust my camera. But the LG G Flex is much larger. The LG G Flex is my daily driver. Anyways, so the screen time on this phone is, and the battery life is fantastic, as well as the clarity on the screen. The phone has a Snapdragon 800 processor. I mentioned that in the beginning of the ad. That is one of the more top-of-the-line processors. Now, since the Snapdragon 800 has been released, they've released the 801, which is really just a minuscule upgrade of the 800. It's basically the same processor clocked a little faster. Then there's been the 805, which is the processor in the Nexus 6, and then there is a 810, which is a processor that is essentially the 64-bit version of the 805. So in terms of processing power, even though this phone's over a year old, it still has great processing power. I mean, it's top of line, and I'll show you that here in a benchmark so you understand exactly what that means to you in terms of usage in gaming. I'm going to run an Antutu benchmark, and this benchmark takes about 3 or 4 minutes to run, but I'm going to run it. I'll keep the video on. If you want to skip ahead, skip about 3.5 or 4 minutes ahead. Okay. So I'm going to run a benchmark. Now keep in mind that this is a 1080p screen, so it's not going to benchmark as high as the LG G Flex because the G Flex is a 720p screen. Now really, the naked eye can't see much of a difference between 1080p and 720p unless you're really kind of anal about your screens. But one thing I have noticed is that this screen is much brighter and much more clear than my LG G Flex. Not because it has more pixels, but just because the screen has just better lighting and it's a much more crisp image. But to me, it's not that big of a deal because I'm not doing photography on my phone. While we're waiting for it to benchmark, get some views of the phone. I mean, the phone is very pretty. It's basically all the buttons you have on the phone. Those three: volume up, volume down, the power, which is pretty standard. It doesn't have any expandable storage. The only slot you have on this phone is this slot right here. Can't really see it very well. See that pinhole? That's where you pop the SIM card tray out. That's the only slot on the phone. There's no expandable storage. Oh, one thing to note is there is a difference between. This is the LG G Flex for T-Mobile, which is the D801. See that right there? Yeah, my camera's having a hard time focusing. D801. Now the Verizon model, which I can't remember the model now off the top of my head, it has metal buttons and a little bit smaller buttons here in place of these plastic buttons. So take note of that if you're looking at this review to buy a Verizon edition of this phone. Another thing to note is that the Verizon edition is a little thicker and it has wireless charging. The T-Mobile edition does not have wireless charging built in. So if wireless charging is a feature that you want, you either have to install it yourself or buy the Verizon model and use it unlocked. The Verizon model will work on T-Mobile, but you have to live in a refarmed area. Now, if you're curious about what that means, Google T-Mobile refarmed area, and it'll tell you exactly what they've done to set up the band so that Verizon phones will work. Now, I had a Verizon edition of this phone, and it was kind of annoying because I'd either get 4G LTE or 2G Edge. So be careful. Make sure that if you are going to buy a Verizon model and use it unlocked, that you know what you're buying. Otherwise, I'd recommend buying the model associated with your carrier. And in this case, this is the T-Mobile edition, and we are using it on T-Mobile. So still one of my favorite phones. See, shows the resolution is 1920 by 1080, which is considered 1080p. A few more graphics tests and we'll be done with this benchmark. Turn it back over. Okay. Oh, another graphics 3D test. So right here we're getting about 30 frames per second on this test, which is okay. It's not horrible. You can see it's a little stuttery, but nothing horrible. Down to 20 frames. Now we're back up to 25. It's kind of going between 20 and 25 frames per second. All the way down to 18 and a half. This is a 3D rendering, so it's testing its 3D capability. 22.3, 2.5. We're getting decent graphics. In terms of gaming, it's not the top of line phone, but it'll play any game out there on the Google Play Store. We're getting 43 frames a second, which is very good. Okay, so this scored a 32,000. Now, what does that compare to? The G3 scores like what, a 36,000. The Nexus 5 scores a 35,000. If you go all the way up to the OnePlus One scores a 45,000. The Note 4 scores a 45,000. So it's not top of line, but it is still a very good phone. If you can, so another to give you a comparison, you can buy a Moto G unlocked for about $189, and that has a Snapdragon 400 CPU. Now, the Snapdragon 400 CPU has a 720p screen, and it only benchmarks about 17,000. So this has a twice the resolution screen, and it's benchmarking almost 2 times as fast. So the processing power of the Snapdragon 800 and the value that you get for this phone, it can't be matched. You can pick this up for about the same price as a new Moto G, and it has more features, more storage, more RAM. Everything about it is better. And I'm not biased, I have Moto G. I like the vanilla Android. This runs LG's custom interface. You can kind of see some of the widgets that they have built in. But yeah, it's a great phone. If you have any questions about my review, please let me know. I'd be happy to answer those questions, and maybe even do, my phone's having a hard time focusing, or my camera, and do another review to answer some of your questions. I need to turn down the brightness because it's making my camera have a hard time focusing. There we go. Okay, that's a review of the LG G2 for T-Mobile. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I appreciate your time for watching my video. Thank you, and bye-bye.